Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain and welcome to the Stuck in the Middle review. The Q&A was awesome, but it's kinda nice to have a script again. So anyways, during the premiere of the show back in February, I gave my initial thoughts on it, what it could be, where it could go, and I didn't do a review of the second episode, so I'll briefly talk about it before we jump into the third. Spoiler warnings now, you all know the drill. So with all that said, let's dive into Stuck with a Guy on the Couch, but first, a quick look at Stuck in the Sweet Seat. So episode 2 is basically this. It's Harley's birthday, but everyone seems to forget. She wants to keep it that way so she can earn enough guilt points to sit in the best seat in the car during car rides, and that's where the episode title comes from. A few members of the family find out, but Harley makes them keep it a secret until eventually she decides to just tell everyone it's her birthday, and the family does the normal celebratory thing. Not really too much to say, but I do think there was some great development for the character of Georgie. If you all watched the first episode, you just might think of her as just a standard, heavy energy athletic sort, but she's actually proving to have the biggest heart out of all the members of the Diaz family, and episode 2 definitely showcases that. It's Georgie's words to Harley that eventually convinces her to celebrate her birthday and appreciate the fact that she has a day where it's all about her for a change. So that's more or less Stuck in the Sweet Seat. It's an okay episode, I guess, but not terribly discussion worthy. Now, let's jump right into Stuck with a Guy on the Couch. So the episode starts off with a montage of the Diaz family utilizing the communal tablet, but said tablet gets broken. The parents aren't keen on buying a new one, so Harley eventually comes up with a way to raise the money, by renting out their couch to a stranger. And yes, absolutely nothing about what they're suggesting sounds like a good idea, but I think as far as turning it into something somewhat viable, they do a decent enough job here. I still think it's a bit out there as far as the concept goes, but this show is going to basically pride itself on turning somewhat absurd ideas into entire plot points and going from there. It kind of makes sense for a show like this that's based on the elements of disorder and madness that comes naturally from having 9 people under one roof, but I do worry that this show won't go on to mean anything deeper than the surface level if it overly relies on those elements. In any case, they find a taker for their couch, a musician named Bai Tzu. So as you can probably guess, the next couple of days involve trying to keep poor Bai out of sight, since the parents obviously wouldn't approve of Harley's new housing project. Those parts are pretty standard, nothing you haven't seen a million times if you've seen literally any show where any kid was trying to hide anything from anybody. But I think the fact that Bai talked through a translation device is kind of funny. Now, it might seem like a racist depiction to some, but I actually don't think it is, and here's why. Bai is an American. He's only staying at the Diaz house for a few days for a music performance that, from his perspective, is overseas. He wouldn't be expected to speak English, and if this show premiered some years ago, they probably would have forced him to use some ridiculous accent, and that would have been racist. The decision to have him communicate through an app actually makes sense here. There's also a side story about Beast and Louie charging people to watch frog fights. Yeah, that's about as sophisticated as it's gonna get from the whole twin perspective. The trouble they get into together will likely either be just silly enough to work, or too silly to be engaging with not a lot of in-between. So for me, this was the second thing. But we do get an interesting confrontation between Harley and Ethan, which is not something you'd come in expecting if you know about their relationship. Usually, Ethan is cool to go along with whatever Harley has in mind, but this time, he kind of hits a limit. It's not the most powerful moment in the world because the stakes aren't terribly high, but it was an interesting new side of Ethan. He refers to Harley as pushy, which is a somewhat legitimate point, but when they make up, he later points out the benefits of her always planning and pushing people. I think the way they resolve is an important point that I'll dig into more deeply a little later. But eventually, Papa Diaz finds Bai sleeping in one of his boats and sends him on his way without taking his money. Harley doesn't actually admit to being the mastermind behind the plan, so I'm not sure there's any real lesson in this episode. Just a zany situation the Diaz family found themselves in, and that's basically it. So that's the episode. It definitely has a better energy about it than the second episode, which, for my money, made this one a bit more fun. But I still don't think either this or the second episode is as good as the first. I'm starting to get a sense of what this show will be all about for as long as it's around. That is funny mayhem that the Diaz family gets involved in. That will either hit or miss for the most part, so what will end up defining this show is how well it can cultivate its 9 characters. Now that's an inherent challenge, but it's not impossible, since plenty of Disney shows before have developed at least that many characters over time and done so well. It'll be interesting to see how they utilize episodes that place more of a focus on one specific family member not named Harley, and how the other cast members work around that. Harley is great for many reasons, but this show won't amount to much if it's always focusing on the middle child, which is terribly ironic given the premise of the show. Malcolm in the Middle shares many similarities to this show for obvious reasons, but it also developed its characters extremely well. Even Francis, who spent most of the show's runtime completely separated from the rest of the family, is done well. I do want to touch on how Harley and Ethan eventually make up, because I think that moment reaffirms a lot of what Harley believes about herself. It's clear that she values Ethan's opinions a fair bit, and I'm glad we didn't end up in a situation where Harley acts less assertive because it's not quote-unquote girly to do so, which is something this episode could have easily slipped into. The whole idea that Harley has isn't the best one necessarily, but it's the overarching message that matters here, and that message is that it's okay to not fit standard female archetypes. In fact, some of the best characters Disney Channel has ever created don't follow the beaten path of fashion and eyeliner. Not that there's anything wrong with those things, but they aren't the only things, and that's the whole point. Guys, we're now 3 episodes in, so I pose the question, is this show any good? I am enjoying it so far, but there's plenty of shows that I like, despite being objectively bad. So beyond that, let's think about what we're really looking at here. As of right now, my perspective is that their scope is a bit limited, and I feel like they should focus more on fleshing out relationships and developing characters as a direct result. All of us know that Louie and Beast are twins, and they'll naturally do everything together, and that Ethan and Harley are very close. But I think this show needs to do a bit more with the family ties beyond those two, as well as look to create content that has more of a take-home message. Now, I'm not saying it has to all of a sudden turn into Full House, even though that title would also work, but if it doesn't strive to mean more than exactly what it is, which is the life and times of the Crazy Diaz family, it won't end up being a show many people remember years from now. But there's certainly no shortage of opportunities to create that greater meaning. So here's hoping it can air that definitive episode, that one episode that everyone has felt before, that one episode in each truly special show that lets you know this is and can be more than just entertainment. For me, Girl Meets Flaws was that episode, Raider Rooney was that episode, and more recently, Double Dipper was that episode. So, is this show any good? My answer is, I don't know yet, but I hope so. I feel like 3 episodes from now, for better or worse, I'll know for sure. But, as always, let me know what your take is on the show so far. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, help me out with the likes, subs, and share it all over social media. And don't forget to follow the Disney Brain on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Links down below. The 50th video is coming soon, and with it comes the highly anticipated Lemonade Mouth review. That, along with more Power Rangers videos, the Liv and Maddie review on Monday, and diving into the Cheetah trilogy a little later on. Until then...
Thank you, kind girl.
He called me kind. And a girl.